Perfect. Thanks, and thanks for joining. My name is Daniel Graverson. I am the creator of Figaf, and I've been doing SAP Integration for a long period of time. Some of you may know me from the courses I've created, and some of you may have seen me from some of the other events or webinars I've done about this topic. I'm really passionate about how to make it easier for developers to govern and transport and manage their SAP integration, because I think that's really an important aspect of how you're dealing with your SAP integration. So that's what this is about. What are the ideas that you can do to simplify your SAP integrations? You should have a chat box, or there should be a chat box that you can start up and write questions, comments along the way. I'll try to cover as many as possible, but if I forget it or something like that, just ask me later. And you also got my email, so if you find something tomorrow or in an hour, then just write me an email. Good. So let's get started. So I've tried to put in some of the different aspects of this, and I hope you can see my screen. That's always the thing I forget to do sometime, and but I hope it's okay this time. So the things I would like to share a little about today is how you can get much more control of your SAP CPI transport, because I think that is where we're going, and it needs to be a lot easier. And then I'll share how you can use a Git repository to manage your CPI code. I will show you how you can automate your testing processes. And obviously, when you're talking about DevOps, everybody would talk about Azure DevOps or whatever kind of pipelining tool you have, and we'll cover some of the ideas that we have regarding this, what can be done, and some of the challenges that it proposes. And then obviously how you can get started with the Figaf tool. So as I see SAP integration, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, just write in the chat, are you seeing more integration projects going on, more complex scenarios that you need to develop? The release cycle needs to be improved, and I also see from some of the different requests that I get at the moment for freelancers that it is really difficult to find good integration developers, because it is a little different concept than dealing with normal SAP or any other area of integration, because it requires both some business understanding, some technical knowledge, some Groovy, some whatever, and not that many have already converted to CPI, and obviously from the SAP's roadmap, SAP Cloud Integration is going to be a huge bet from SAP, and we will see a lot more people moving over there. So there is really a need for getting more skills in that perspective. So how do we make transports better? And if you could have this really, I would say, really big magic wand that you could swing and say, this is how it would look like, and these are the best way to handle these integrations. So some of that I have seen, and I guess this, no matter which of the processes that I've been working with, it's the same kind of understanding. So it's about understanding the change, what it is, how to deal with it. It's about how you approve what is being changed. And I've seen a lot of times when we have done integrations with people that that you would document something or make some governance part and say, okay, these are the things that need to be processed. But it's not really logged in a good way that makes it easy and searchable approvable afterwards, and the people that are approving cannot really approve it because it's difficult to improve. There's also a part of the governance. Obviously, you need to approve it, you need to understand what's being changed, you need to have this audit trail and be able to find the reason why something was changed at any given point in time. We also have configuration after application. So once you imported something, and in the PI world, this was when you had your change list and you needed to look at it and see what was going on in this. You need to go and make a few changes in the host names and stuff like that and apply it. There's the part about doing documentation that I don't think that there's many developers that really enjoy doing, but it's kind of forced to do it. And then we obviously have the testing. Are there anything else that I did not cover that you see as one of the challenges in this? Because there's obviously quite a number of different challenges that we need to address, and that is a challenge to most processes. And so I shared this, wrote an email out, and quite a few of you wrote back that, well, we use file import export, and that, well, I don't know when that was really a good way to do anything. Obviously, for an unmature system, it's okay, but once you reach some kind of certain maturity, you need to have this process in place. And you're sure there's CTS Plus, there's SAP Transport Management, but I guess then it's not about transporting files, but transporting blobs in these objects, and it can really be a little challenging to see what is being transported in that process. Anything I missed? Put it into the chat. So let's talk about DevOps with Figaf. I put it in quotes because, DevOps is a lot of things, and most of the time people will say this is Azure DevOps, that's the best place to do these kind of things. I would disagree, and we'll come a little around that later, and why we can do a better job with this. So when we talk about how your transport processes could be, then at Figaf Tool we have created one suite that actually can handle all of these different things, from the management, the handling of the transport, the visibility in what's being changed. It can be approved externally, so if you have a Jira or something like that, you can also handle governance as a part of that, transport directly from Jira, configuration of iflow, and then we also have documentation. So for all of you that just joined, if you have questions along the way, just put them into the chat or comments, then I'll try to cover those things. So I try to see this as two ways that we're dealing with this. So obviously there's the part about developing your SAP integration, and how do you actually figure out what's being changed, what's new, who is dealing with which things. And then, so one of the things we do have here, this is a Git repository that makes it easier to manage your code. There's some plugins that you can use for it, and we also have some way of handling this shared scripting resources. Gregory's, it's both. It's an on-premise one that you can host in Azure or on your laptop if you want to, but we also have a cloud version of it. For now, the cloud version is more for proof of concepts, and trying to see what the tool can do. So that's the development part of it, and I think we'll just cover these artifacts a little later, because obviously when you talk Git, a lot of people will deal with these things. But the thing is, you would obviously also be working on the BPMN way, because that is given the best place to edit these things. Then once we talk about transports, then there's a lot of different things into it that we can make it easier to manage. So first off is it enables you to do a transport where you can transport packages iflow, value mappings at an individual level. And that means you can actually understand what is being transported at any given point in time. We also have virtual landscapes which allow you to actually save a QA system where it will just import the packages with some pre-delivered context. It has the ability to apply the configuration. There's a lot of approving that can go on, that you can actually see who has been approving these things. We have a lot of things around documentation, transport, and APIs if you want to invoke it from third parties. We have a BPM tool configuration, but maybe we should get started. It's a lot easier to find and show what's going on. So here I have an iflow, and let me just do a few changes into it, because that is definitely more fun to do. So we'll create a new header. We'll set it to yes, and we will also just change one of our Groovy scripts. I think we're not using this one. Let's just see here. So now we have done a change to an iflow, and we will save this as a version. So this would happen whenever you have done any major part or any change because of something that has happened on the platform that you need to encounter. What you can then do is you can go to the Figaf tool, and here you can select this your development API platform or CPI platform. Here you can press synchronize, and you can then select if you want all packages or just some packages. And for this, we just want to transport one package, one iflow in that package, and want to see what has been changed in that one. So and that takes a few seconds, 14 seconds to synchronize the number of objects. We can see we got one new iflow, one new script, as we would expect. So the easiest way is just to look at what has been changed, and we can see there's actually this script 2 and this this iflow that has been changed. We did this because we had a Jira ticket or ServiceNow incident or something like that to cover this case. And we can then select assign to ticket, demo. So what are the reason why we created this fix? We can specify which landscape we want to do it in. And when you're defining landscape, you can set up a number of different things. What are the different tenants in it? Who needs to approve certain steps? Do we want to apply or deploy the configurations at any given point in time? And stuff like that. And we can then put in our Jira ticket number so we know why this has been applied. Let's put some description in. And the idea is then later, if someone's looking at your integration, he could actually be able to see which integration has been changed because of a given ticket. And that means you can trace it all the way back into the Jira and see what was changed there. So now we have our iflow. We can go and we can look up which kind of test cases we have. And we have some that we created not long ago. The idea is that you would create a repository of test data. You would then have these tests, and you can then execute them whenever you're making a change to an iflow. And obviously we need to have this deployed, otherwise testing it on it is a little counterintuitive, and it can only test once the iflow has been deployed. But the idea, the way we are testing normally is to use the trace functionality. So we would switch an iflow into trace mode. We will send the messages through, then we can record these. and then we can send the same messages in, download all the artifacts, and then we'll actually be able to see what has happened as a part of this. And it does take a little while for it to start. Any questions? Do put them into the chat. So now we've done this. Let's wait until it's finished deploying. So we used the deploying and not the started event because we had seen sometime it was not really started yet. So that's why we wait a little extra for it. Okay, let's just start the transport. And then we can take the testing afterwards, because it's the same whether or not we're testing in one versus the other. So we can start our transport, and here we can now see we have created a transport, and in this transport we only have one iflow here. We can go in here and then we can figure out what kind of configuration do we actually need in the different environments. So here I just have a dev and a QA, but obviously if you had a production, pre-prod and everything like that, all of that could be configured in just one screen. So you did not need to go in multiple times and figure out what was going on and why you needed to deal with these things. And that means that basis does not really need to be involved in these things, and it's much easier to understand what is being changed, and you have one global set where you're defining these things. Good. So now I can send this to approval, and then obviously the fun thing is whether or not I'm an approver. So one of the new things we are also adding is that you cannot approve your own transport, which makes sense because of governance. So even though you're in the list of approvers, you can specify that you should not be able to approve. I can approve anyway because, yeah, I want to. And it's a lot easier for demo purposes instead of logging in and out. What we have here now, I'm in the approver screen, and we have a lot of places with all objects that we have these attributes. So we have BPM Viewer, which will then give us an overview about what is changed in this specific process. And here we can see that there has been added a new cell with these information, and that means we actually have pretty good understanding about what is being changed along the way. And if I sit as an approver, I can see where someone has made any changes, and I can drill into that in more details and see, is this actually correct? So that's one way to have it. We also have diff to HTML, and this will then give you a list of all the resources that has been changed. And the challenging thing is, for instance here, if you just do a normal diff, then the BPM diff that it's adding is pretty challenging to actually find, and that's why we created the virtual or the visual comparison here. And then we can see we have added or changed one global header here. This can be integrated into Charm. We do have APIs for it that would allow you to call this service and say, so from Charm, that once you import a transporter, that it could call and say, okay, also import the related CPI content to it. So the business could work in API standard tool, and then they could actually transport this pretty easy to and make sure they're imported correctly via the API. But you would need to add some kind of steps into it. I don't recommend to use the Charm or CTS Plus for managing the transport, but for the approval process I think it makes sense, and especially if this transport also includes some ABAP content. I hope that answers the question. So, and then there's a few other views, and obviously depend on what you want to see of that's going on. We can then approve it, and we can import it. And then it would import this, apply all the configuration that we have, deploy it, and then you got a new iflow that has been deployed with this specific point in mind. And yeah, it takes a little while for it to synchronize properly this and deploy it. So now we can go back to our ticket. We can set it to resolved. And now we can see all the artifacts that has been applied on this. And if we look at, for instance, our agent, we can see all the tickets that refers to these changes. So we can actually see that this change was done because we had this this issue, and then drill into the issue in this way. And this makes it really simple to have full visibility in what's been changed. We can also create a report, and the report will give us all the information about the iflow. What are the attributes a part of it? What are the artifacts? If we had added test cases and run them, it will also show them here. And we have the transport about which kind of objects that we're transporting as a part of this. So that was a little on the transport process, what it can do in terms of in terms of CPI, and how easy it is to deal with these things. We have some guides. It takes like 30 minutes to set up, where I'll show how to set up, how to run the cloud environment, how to provision it and stuff like that, deploy it, create a landscape, synchronize it, do a transport, also create a test case. So we try to make it as simple as possible to get started. Good. We have the same support for IPM management, where you can also work with the Git Gradle repository, where you can take transport of API proxies, KVMs along the way, and configure them in the landscape. So you, at one point in time, just say, okay, I have this KVM. These are the values that I need in QA in production for this. So we had a demo earlier with a client that had an encrypted key store, and there we could specify the client ID and client secret in the QA and productive system and import it. And this would all be done with the same UI, where users are able to approve these things. There's also some monitoring capabilities where you can get notification on alerts and errors. And for PIPO, and this obviously requires that you have hosted it yourself on some server or VM. There it can also do the same kind of transport, having the full visibility and apply the configuration in that way. What do you mean about sub-account and global accounts? We just look at the different CPI tenants. So once you're configuring it, you will specify a specific CPI tenant. For PIPO, we also have testing, monitoring, and the same kind of documentation of changes. So you can see for an ICO, what are the iflows that we have, what are the configuration parameters there. Git Repository. I think the Git Repository is pretty interesting in terms of developing. So the idea we wanted to create, and that's obviously sometimes a little challenging to do Git or improve the development process when it's not really there to be improved. So the way we work is that from the Figaf tool will synchronize data from the Git repository. So it will, as we saw now, it will take all the iflows that we have, and then once it has done that, it will push it into a Git repository. In this Git repository, the user can then pull the latest changes, and he can then see the iflow. And then from here, he has the option to upload or download iflows for a certain user. And that makes it really easy to develop. The place where the challenge comes in is if you want to do a full Git flow about noting things and stuff like that, it becomes a little challenging because we have two ways of updating the Git repository. We have an option you can say you do not want to update all of these things, and you need to figure out where is your approach for this. Normally I would just recommend just use the Git repository as a file server and then extract all of these things. Sandeep, we do have an option to do to log and view payloads in CPI, so we have an OData monitor that can look at these things. We'll show it later. And if I forgot it, just ping me. So yeah, you can either stay in this ERT sync or move it to somewhere else, and then obviously you would have a lot of versioning. We also provide some Gradle plugins, and I think these are open source. You can find it on GitHub. This makes it easier for you to develop and manage your iflows, and that means you can actually sit in IntelliJ, develop. So here we have the IntelliJ. We can fetch the latest version of our iflow. So where do we have update cancel? Revert. Oh, yeah. We did not want to do that. So the idea here is that we try to come with all the configuration files that you need as a user. So you do not need to do anything specific, and here it will just prop with all the different values that you need for it to work. And what you can then do is you can run these Gradle plugins just by clicking upload or clicking download. And that will take the artifact you have here, deploy it, upload it and deploy it, and you can configure this as you want. One of the other cool things is that if you created a test case, you can take this test case and it will then create a set of test cases that you can then run. And the cool thing about running these things is Groovy is the key. Strange. Okay, so maybe the Groovy library has been changed. But the idea is that you could run here, then you will get into debug, and once you are in debug mode, you will then be able to step through your Groovy code, do breakpoints, see what data you have in this specific place. And this really simplifies it a lot when you're dealing with mappings and stuff like that. And you don't need to write all this boilerplate code to run a Groovy script and do anything like that, because it all comes as a part of the delivery process. So that's why, yeah, I do think this makes development easier, because you have all of the resources together, and you can obviously search for any specific Groovy script that you have and then find it here, because you have access to all the code in just one simple repository. But yeah, the challenge is which Git flow do you want to use and how does all of this fit together. Gradle plugins, they're open source. Automatic testing is one of the key concepts here, and we wanted to make it as simple as possible for users to be able to test, because sometimes it's a bit challenging to test SAP CPI. You've probably seen how creating some iflows is, and being able to run them and managing in a multiple environment is fun. So we started out with a testing tool, and then it has been increased until this DevOps tool that allow you to manage the full development process. We have the iflows that you can test. The way we do it is switch the iflow into trace mode, and then we have a bot that will just keep the iflow into trace mode until you have collected a number of packages for that. It has the ability also to mock endpoints. So if you have an iflow that's calling success factors and create employee, and you cannot call with the same employee all the time, it is just able to mock that service. That means you can actually test the full inflow, the full iflow, without handling these things. Yes, so that, I guess, the simulator, it does not use the simulate, but it uses the real iflow. At some point in time, we may also switch and give you the option also to test with the simulation mode. But yeah, I wanted to make it easier, and there's obviously something that's a little challenging with this, and that's setting up a mock service, handling that's calling all these external services if they're not really available. And then you can reuse these test cases and put them into your Git repository. Then you can handle the MPL attachments and persistent messages. So let me just show you how to create a test case, and this is really simple. So we have our iflow, we select Git custom. So we have here an iflow, and all these set packages is if it's mocked or something like that that's happened there. So we can select record messages. So we can specify how many messages we want for it. Do we have any special data we can extract from it with an XPath? And then what we'll do is we'll switch it into trace mode, and then this will be in trace mode, and you can schedule it so at every 10 minutes or 5 minutes ensure that the iflow is continuously in tests or trace mode. Let me just see here, I can run it. So now I'm just running the iflow in the background. It seems to be working. Need my chat. And we can select here poll messages, and then this will download all the iflow messages that we have. And depending on how number of messages, it can take a little while to deal with these things. So now it's completed. So now we have created a first test case with 1 inbound message and 43 outbound messages. Let's just details here. Here we have the option to see the specific messages that exist. We can go in and we can make modifications to it. So let's just demo webinar. So hopefully once we've run it, we will see this as an error. And so we can create it here. Which systems do we want to run it on? And now we can actually run it on our development system. And what we'll do is, if we need to create mocks, it can do that. You can include or exclude steps, so it only takes certain parts of the testing for dealing with these things. And this will then take another 20 seconds or so. Oh, I'm on the wrong spot. So we have here on the last result, here you can see how the testing went. You can see there was some errors here. We can view diff. So there was a cookie that was found in the external service, or that was not used. And there's also some other errors here. This FIP head. So we can see a lot of these errors. We can go through, ignore all of these new elements that we have added to the process. And then it will be a little clear about what kind of errors and differentiators we do have. And obviously it depends on if you are doing mock services, there may come some extra endpoint on it, and we can just run comparison again. So, and then you go through all the different alerts and see what are the different notifications we have here. So Yak, you have 4 sub accounts, and then you want to migrate into 1 or to 2 global. So you can set up different landscape and say, okay, if you're developing on 1 tenant, it can move it to 1 of 2 landscapes. There's a lot of different options of setting up this landscape that allow you to have one place where you develop and deploy it in multiple sub accounts. Because the only thing we do have here is so we define the agents as just normal CPI tenants, and we can connect to them both Neo and Cloud Foundry, and the same for API management also. Message monitor. So I think that's also a pretty nice feature. So one of the things we do have here, I need to speed up, is we have an iflow here where you can specify which iflows do we want to see as a part of this. And that enables you to actually go in and say, okay, for this iflow we have, or for this CPI tenant, we have these messages. We want to see them in certain ways and stuff like that. And here you can then see the different messages that have been processed, how they're running, and let me just get this. Let's see if we have any. Maybe I have not selected here. So we do also have in here, you can see persisted messages and MPL attachment. So here we have persisted and MPL attachment. If you have access to it, you can download and view the messages here. Okay. Yes, Bruno, we will also get to full version licensing at the end and getting more. So, well, let me just speed up this. So we have created a proof of concept to see what you can do with Azure DevOps, because that's, I guess, a KPI point in a lot of companies. They want to use that to manage the SAP integration. So we've created some DevOps pipeline that takes the content, deploy it, and release it. And there's a demo at this link. You can see how we have done it with these plugins. So one of the challenges that it uses these GitHub/Figaf. You can find all the plugins on. So one of the challenges is that it's pretty difficult to understand what's being deployed, and you're both deploying in your development tenant, in the Git repository, and synchronizing these things and figure out where the real core, what's going on is. There's something about the local development system you're missing. There's a link between the transports and what has been imported that I find a little challenging. Obviously, you can go back into the Git repository, and maybe there's better ways to handle that. There's something about how do you actually configure the different landscapes at the different places. We found you needed to write quite a bit of code to set this process up. And then I think when you're approving things, the Figaf tool and the different perspective give you a lot better value in some of those aspects. But yeah, if you want to learn more, check out this link, or just search for Figaf CPI and Azure DevOps, and you can see the link there. Deployment. I guess the business case is probably also quite relevant about how to get involved in this. So the thing we normally would be saving is some time for the developer to do the documentation, do all the required steps, for the architects to approve it. Now he has full access, understanding what's going on. Basis guys, they don't really need to be involved in this because architect and developer can handle it themselves, or the basis can be a part of the approval process or be the ones that needs to import this. And also the tester, obviously we would not get rid of all of these, but at least a lot of the regression, all of these tedious manual works can be improved. And depending on your hourly rate, 100 to 1,000 plus euros per change for documentation, I guess is not really that uncommon. The Figaf tool starts at 600 euros per month for, so if you are making a few changes a month, few new developments, it pays itself in, and then you get some of the benefits of speedier developer, and as I wrote today, the ability to undelete iflows if you need to. So there's obviously the business case about just speeding up the development governance process that you probably should be doing. Yes. Development options. So we have a few different ways to deploy this. It's a standalone Java application. You can actually run it on your laptop if you want to just see how it works. The challenge we sometimes have is if you have a company proxy in place and how to get around that and connect directly. But I guess in these times when you're working from home, it may be useful to disconnect from the VPN, and then you can actually connect to the CPI tenants easier. There's also a cloud version that you can also use and try out and see how it goes. For production, we recommend it's a standalone Java application that needs a commercial grade database. We have also support for Azure and AWS, what do you call it? Docker Compose images that is pretty easy to run and update and manage, and we see more and more trying out that approach for it. Pricing. So the way we're pricing it for the DevOps, for the iflow, for the full package with Git Repository testing and monitoring is 600 euros a month and 6 euros extra per iflow that you have. And we can start with a 3-month billing. So one question to you, and I'm just exploring and would like your feedback either here or on an email. Would you prefer that we created a more smaller package where you pay, I don't know, 100 euros per agent and then $50 or I don't know, whatever, $20 euros per change that you create, so it matches your license or the way you're developing, and you would just get a bill for how much you're doing? Or do you just want like a fixed one that you can say for the next year this is going to cost this much? I would like to hear if that is something that resonate and would be a better approach for you to scale this. Next steps, you can see my calendar. So That's obviously it's not something you're gonna buy or try out just by this. If you want to book a meeting with me, you can go to figaf.com/book and find a meeting with me, with your team, management, whatever you need, where we can show the tools, give you some understanding about does it suit your needs and your abilities here. You can also write to support@figaf.com if you want our help to set it up. Normally 1 to 2 hours would be sufficient to get around setting up API management, CPI, setting up some testing capabilities, try some of the different capabilities that the tool has, or you can try out yourself at Figaf, just 30 minutes.